Remember, Simi, no one here can know I am royalty. You must appear to be no different than the average man.
I will not say a word.
All right, everybody shut up and do like I say. Get the money out.
Hey, I ain't saying Clay ain't bad. I'm just saying I stopped liking Cash Clay once he changed his name to Muhammad Ali. What kind of shit is that?
A royal fish-out-of-water story with barbershop banter, McDowell's drama, and a crown-wearing Eddie Murphy at the top of his game.
I want a woman that's going to arouse my intellect as well as my loins.
Where will you find such a woman?
In America.
But behind all the laughs, chaos, cameos, and controversy. Let's jump into 20 shocking facts you didn't know about Coming to America. 1. It was originally called The Quest. Before it became the iconic Coming to America, Eddie Murphy pitched the film under a very different name, The Quest. It sounds more like a fantasy movie or some ancient Arthurian legend, but that was the original title of the script when Murphy first brought the idea to Paramount. He envisioned a story about a sheltered African prince leaving his palace for the first time to find love, not through arrangement, but through genuine connection. The title didn't sit right with the studio, though. They wanted something flashier, funnier, and more marketable. Eventually, it was changed to Coming to America, and the rest is history. Still, that original title gives us a glimpse into Murphy's mindset.
Oh, yeah, him. He around here someplace. He live upstairs on the 5th floor.
This wasn't just a comedy to him, it was a heartfelt story about self-discovery, freedom, and choosing your own destiny. With jokes, of course. 2. Eddie Murphy refused to play a character named Eddie. When Eddie Murphy first read the early drafts of Coming to America, he was shocked to find that the main character, the African prince, was literally named Eddie, and he hated it.
Well, perhaps some other time, so I really have to get going.
Oh, no, sit down. I'll be right back with that drink.
Murphy was already a massive star by 1988, and he didn't want to just be seen as playing himself. He wanted to disappear into a fully original character, someone audiences wouldn't immediately associate with his stand-up or past roles. So, he demanded the name be changed. The result was Prince Akeem of Zamunda, polite, wide-eyed, soft-spoken, and the complete opposite of Murphy's usual fast-talking persona. That decision set the tone for the entire film. It showed off Murphy's range and helped audiences believe in the character's innocence. He wasn't Eddie Murphy playing Eddie Murphy. He was a prince from a faraway kingdom, discovering America one awkward moment at a time. 3. Paramount forced a white actor into the cast. Despite Eddie Murphy's vision for an all-black cast, Paramount Pictures wasn't comfortable with it. The studio insisted that at least one white actor be included to balance things out. Because in 1988, Hollywood still didn't believe a movie with a predominantly black cast could appeal to everyone. Murphy wasn't thrilled, but he played along, with style. He chose comedian Louis Anderson, calling him the funniest white guy I know. Anderson ended up playing Maurice, the cheerful McDowell's employee who proudly announces he's washing lettuce now, but soon I'll be on fries. Ironically, Maurice became a fan favorite, and the only supporting character from the original to appear in the sequel over 30 years later. What started as a forced inclusion turned into a beloved performance and a subtle jab at Hollywood's outdated assumptions about casting and comedy. 4. Arcenio Hall quit Ghostbusters for this. Before landing the role of Semi, Prince Akeem's whiny and dramatic sidekick, Arcenio Hall was busy voicing Winston Zeddemore in the real Ghostbusters animated series. But when Coming to America came along, Hall didn't hesitate.
I want a woman that's going to arouse my intellect as well as my loins.
Where will you find such a woman?
In America.
He left the cartoon behind and dove headfirst into the film. It was a massive leap, but it paid off. Hall didn't just play Semi, he morphed into multiple characters, including a sleazy preacher, a wild barbershop guy, and that famously unsettling woman at the nightclub. His chemistry with Eddie Murphy was electric, and his range was on full display. Hall went from voiceover work to full-on shape-shifting comedian, and in doing so, he helped make Coming to America one of the most dynamic and unpredictable comedies of the decade. Leaving Ghostbusters might have been risky, but it launched Arsenio into comedy royalty. 5. The McDowell's set nearly got them sued. McDowell's wasn't just a hilarious McDonald's knockoff, it was a legal grenade. The similarities were intentionally over the top. golden arcs instead of arches, the Big Mick instead of the Big Mac, and nearly identical uniforms.
Sweetheart, why don't you quit this job?
Because I like it here.
But the real McDonald's didn't find it funny. They sent actual corporate representatives to the filming location to investigate potential trademark violations. In response, the production team went full defense mode. They created a fake employee manual detailing how McDowell's was totally different, down to the sesame seeds and the number of beef patties. It worked. Somehow the legal storm passed, and the joke stayed in the movie. Today, McDowell's is a cultural icon in its own right, so legendary that fans have opened real-life pop-ups modeled after it. It started as a parody, nearly ended in court, and ended up becoming one of the most memorable fake fast food joints in movie history. 6. Samuel L. Jackson got his start robbing McDowell's. Before he was yelling at snakes or rocking an eye patch in the Marvel Universe, Samuel L. Jackson made one of his earliest film appearances in Coming to America. He played the shotgun-wielding thief who bursts into McDowell's and demands everyone hit the floor. The scene is short, but Jackson's intensity is unforgettable.
All right, everybody shut up and do what I say. Get the money out.
It was one of his very first credited movie roles, and even in just a few lines, he managed to steal the scene, literally. At the time, Jackson was mostly known in theater circles, but this small, chaotic role gave audiences a first taste of the energy he'd bring to the big screen for decades. It's wild to think that the man robbing McDowell's would go on to become one of Hollywood's most iconic and bankable stars. 7. John Amos got the part by threatening murder. Kinda. When John Amos heard about the role of Cleo McDowell, the proud, burger-obsessed father of Lisa, he didn't audition. He didn't send in a tape. He just made a call. And what he said was unforgettable. "You try to keep me out of this movie, I'll kill you." It was a joke, of course, but it worked. The producers knew they had their man.
Yeah, well, look, Daryl, why don't you come by the house tonight? Yeah, about 9 o'clock.
Amos brought a perfect mix of gruffness and charm to the role, playing a dad who's more impressed by wealth than royal lineage. His delivery, especially in scenes where he brags about McDowell's being completely different from McDonald's, became instantly iconic. That offhand joke about murder wasn't just funny. It landed him one of the most beloved roles in 1980s comedy. Sometimes all it takes to get the job is a very bold punchline. 8. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s first movie role was a haircut. Long before he shouted, "Show me the money," or won an Oscar, Cuba Gooding Jr. made his film debut sitting silently in a barber's chair. In Coming to America, he appears during the famous barbershop scene, getting his hair trimmed by Eddie Murphy in full old man makeup as Clarence the Barber. He doesn't say a single word, doesn't react, and barely moves. But that blink and you'll miss it moment marked the beginning of a huge Hollywood career. At the time, Gooding Jr. was just starting out, and landing a cameo in a major Eddie Murphy film was already a huge deal. Today, fans love pointing him out during rewatch, because that quiet teenager in the barber's chair, he'd go on to become one of the biggest actors of the 90s. Not bad for a haircut. 9. Saul the Barber was based on Rick Baker's father-in-law. Saul, the elderly Jewish barber played by Eddie Murphy, is one of the most jaw-dropping character transformations in the film. And that's thanks to legendary makeup artist Rick Baker. But here's the twist. Baker didn't just invent Saul from scratch. He based the character's look, voice, and even mannerisms on his own father-in-law. In fact, some of the close-up shots of Saul's hands weren't Murphy's. They were Baker's father-in-law's hands.
Three punches. You should change the name outside from Mighty Sharp to the Three Punches.
Filmed as hand doubles. The realism was so convincing that audiences didn't believe it was Murphy under all the prosthetics. Baker said creating Saul was one of the most challenging and rewarding parts of the movie. It wasn't just great makeup, it was family inspiration turned into comedy gold. 10. The film secretly connects to Trading Places. If you blink during the park scene, you might miss one of the funniest Easter eggs in 80s comedy history. When Prince Akeem hands cash to two homeless men on the street, it's not just a random act of kindness. Those men are actually Randolph and Mortimer Duke, the greedy villains from Eddie Murphy's earlier hit Trading Places. In that film, the Duke brothers lose everything after a humiliating stock market scheme. Here, they reappear in tattered clothes, shocked and grateful as Akeem hands them a wad of money. It's an unofficial crossover that connects both films in the same universe. Fans were blown away, and it turned a simple gag into one of the most legendary cameos in comedy history. A royal bailout never looked so good. 11. The mic drop? Eddie and Arcenio invented it. That hilarious moment when Randy Watson finishes butchering the greatest love of all and drops the mic like he just rocked Madison Square Garden? Completely improvised. Eddie Murphy and Arcenio Hall came up with the bit on the spot while filming the scene. At the time, mic drops weren't really a thing, but after that moment, they became comedy gold. Murphy even claimed it was one of the first ever mic drops in a movie. Whether that's true or not, it definitely helped popularize the move.
Damn, that boy can sing.
Now it's a staple in stand-up, rap battles, and viral videos. But it all started with Randy Watson and his band, Sexual Chocolate. 12. Rick Baker made 40 different teeth to bring all the outrageous characters in Coming to America to life. Legendary makeup artist Rick Baker didn't stop at prosthetics. He crafted over 40 sets of custom teeth. Each set was designed to match the personalities of Murphy and Hall's wild alter egos. From Randy Watson's crooked grin to Saul the Barber's worn-down dentures, every pair had a backstory baked in. Baker even used different shades, shapes, and gum lines to make the characters look lived in and believable. It was subtle, but it made a massive difference. The teeth helped the actors fully transform, not just in look, but in how they spoke and moved. It wasn't just acting or makeup, it was total character immersion, right down to the molars. 13. Murphy improvised the clay line and made history. One of the most quoted lines in Coming to America wasn't even in the script.
I ain't saying Clay ain't bad. I'm just saying I stopped liking Cassius Clay once he changed his name to Muhammad Ali. What kind of shit is that?
During the barbershop scene, Murphy, playing Clarence the Barber, says, "His mama named him Clay, I'ma call him Clay," while arguing about Muhammad Ali's name change from Cassius Clay. It was completely improvised on set. Murphy slipped into character and dropped the line naturally, and it landed so hard that the crew burst out laughing behind the camera. The scene stayed in and became comedy legend. It was so iconic, they recreated it nearly word for word in Coming to America. That one unscripted line turned a heated barbershop debate into one of the most memorable quotes in film history, and a masterclass in comedic timing. 14. Hall's nightclub woman scared his own mom. One of Arcenio Hall's wildest characters in Coming to America wasn't a preacher or a barbershop guy. It was a woman. In the nightclub montage, Hall appears in full drag as an aggressively flirty, over-the-top woman on the hunt for love. The transformation was so convincing that even his own mother didn't recognize him at first, when she finally realized it was her son under all that makeup and hair. She was horrified. Hall later joked that the character disturbed her more than anything else he's ever done. It wasn't just a gag. It was so real, it crossed into uncanny valley territory. For a scene packed with strange personalities, this one stood out as both hilarious and genuinely unsettling. 15. The sequel reused costumes from 30 years ago. When Coming to America was released in 2021, the costume department didn't start from scratch. They went deep into the archives. Some of the original royal outfits worn by Eddie Murphy, Arcenio Hall, and James Earl Jones in the 1988 film were pulled out of storage, restored, and reused in the sequel. Costume designer Ruth E. Carter carefully updated certain details, but kept the essence and craftsmanship of the originals. The embroidery, gold accents, and custom prints were still just as stunning, proof that Zamindon fashion never goes out of style. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was a tribute to the legacy of the original film. 3 decades later, the same robes and crowns still fit like royalty, showing the power of great design and a timeless sense of cinematic flair. 16. Nile Rogers wrote the Soul Glow jingle. That unforgettable falsetto anthem, "Just Let Your Soul Glow," wasn't just a random parody. It was written by none other than Nile Rogers, the music legend behind disco hits like Le Freak and Good Times. Rogers was brought in to craft a jingle that felt exactly like an over-the-top 1980s hair commercial, and he nailed it. The vocals, sung with wild intensity by Christopher Max, were intentionally cheesy, overproduced, and dramatic, making the fake product seem hilariously real. In fact, some audiences genuinely believed Soul Glow was an actual hair care brand. The dripping activator juice, the slow-mo glamour shots, it all felt too perfect. Rogers later said the jingle was one of the most fun things he ever worked on. It's just a few seconds of screen time, but it became one of the most iconic and quotable moments in the entire film, and maybe in comedy history. 17. They had to sneak a shot at the Waldorf Astoria. When Prince Akeem and Semi arrive at the luxurious Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, the moment looks flawless on screen. But behind the scenes, total chaos.
Remember, Simi, no one here can know I am royalty. You must appear to be no different than the average man.
I will not say a word.
The production didn't have full permission to film there, so the crew had to act fast, guerrilla style. They showed up with a minimal setup, rolled cameras, grabbed the shot, and got out before anyone could stop them. It was a risky move, especially at such an iconic and tightly controlled location. But it paid off. The footage was too good to cut. It gave Akeem's entrance into America a sense of real-world grandeur without the Hollywood gloss. In a film full of lavish sets and elaborate costumes, this quick, stolen moment added a touch of gritty realism. Sometimes royalty arrives unannounced, and sometimes the filmmakers have to move just as quietly to pull it off. 18. Murphy didn't enjoy working with John Landis. Eddie Murphy brought in director John Landis to helm Coming to America, hoping to recapture the magic they had on Trading Places. But things didn't go as planned. Their relationship had changed drastically. Back in Trading Places, Murphy was the new kid on set. By Coming to America, he was one of the biggest stars in the world, and the power dynamic had completely flipped. Tension built quickly. Landis reportedly treated Murphy the same way he had years earlier, which didn't sit well with the now-established superstar. The two clashed often, and the vibe on set was far from smooth. Murphy later admitted in interviews that working with Landis on this film was one of the least enjoyable experiences of his career. Still, they managed to finish the film and create a classic, but their friendship was never quite the same again. They did reunite years later for Beverly Hills Cop 3, but even then, the spark and the trust was long gone. 19. McDowell's became real. Briefly, for decades, fans dreamed of walking into a real-life McDowell's, ordering a Big Mick, and soaking in the glory of Eddie Murphy's most iconic fast food parody. In 2017, that dream came true, kind of. A Chicago-based restaurant called the Wiener's Circle teamed up with a marketing agency to transform their location into an authentic McDowell's pop-up for Halloween. They didn't just slap a logo on the door, they went all in. Staff wore McDowell's uniforms. The walls were decorated with framed photos of the Zamandan royal family, and the menu featured Big Mix, fries, and even sexual chocolate shakes. The event was such a hit that lines wrapped around the block, and the pop-up returned the following year by popular demand. Even better, it got Eddie Murphy's seal of approval. When he heard about it, he laughed and gave the team his blessing. It's not every day a fictional fast food joint becomes a real cultural icon, but McDowell's wasn't just a joke, it was part of movie history. And for one magical weekend in Chicago, fans got to step into the world of Zamunda, one greasy burger at a time. It proved that when it comes to nostalgia and comedy, nothing hits quite like the Big Mick. 20. It's now preserved in the National Film Registry. In 2021, Coming to America received one of the highest honors in American cinema. It was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry. Every year, the Library of Congress chooses films deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, and Murphy's royal comedy made the cut. That means The Adventures of Prince Akeem, McDowell's, Soul Glow, and Randy Watson are officially part of America's permanent cultural record. The movie wasn't just a box office hit. It broke barriers, redefined black-led comedy, and became a generational classic. Its impact stretched far beyond the laughs. It inspired filmmakers, connected cultures, and gave us a fictional kingdom that felt real. Now Coming to America is officially cinematic royalty. That's Coming to America, a comedy classic packed with royal laughs, wild trivia, and behind-the-scenes chaos. If you learned something new or just love Eddie Murphy in his prime, hit that like button, subscribe for more movie deep dives, and drop your favorite character in the comments below. And remember, it's not a Big Mac, it's a Big Mick.